Hi everyone, I'm Gina from Gina K Designs and your host of StampTV. Today on StampTV, I'm going to show you a fun card project featuring the brand new Sending Love StampTV kit. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to make this card. First, you're going to need some ink, and the ink that I'm using is the Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I'm also going to use some of our Gina K Designs Turquoise C and the Moonlit Fog. Then you're going to need some markers, and I've chosen a variety of Copic markers for this card, but you can use Spectrum Noir markers, you can use water-based markers, you can use colored pencils, whatever you like to color with is just fine. You're also going to need a craft pick, and I'm using this to remove pieces from two brand new dies that I want to show you. I'm also going to use a white gel pen. The stamps that I'm going to use are from the Art from the Heart stamp set, and the greeting is, "You color my world." And then I'm going to use this beautiful flower. I love this flower. This just reminds me of the adult coloring book kind of flowers, and it is so much fun to color. So I'm going to use that stamp. And then I have two brand new dies, brand new Gina K Designs dies. The first die is the Picket fence die. So I'm going to be using that one today, and I'm going to be using this butterfly die called Flutterby. Alright, so for cardstock I'm using some jelly bean green, black, and some of our white. To begin, I'm going to ink up this doodle flower from the Art from the Heart stamp set. Let me grab a little piece of scrap paper here. Okay, and I'm going to start by stamping this one kind of straight up and down in the center, up fairly high. So that's my first one. Don't you love that flower? Oh, it's so much fun. For those of you who have already gotten your kit, break this stamp out and just stamp it and color it. It is so therapeutic and relaxing. All right, now I'm going to do one over here, a little bit lower, like that. And then one more kind of coming in off the side a little bit. I don't like to have them all going exactly the same direction. It makes them look a little bit different when you do it this way. So here's the last one. All right. So there's my stamped image. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different with this card. I'm not going to put a greeting on the front of the card. Instead, my greeting is going to go inside the card. But first, let me show you how I color this flower. So I'm just going to color one for you, and then I'm going to show you a finished one so that you don't have to watch me do the same things 3 times over. So I'm going to use a little bit of orange marker here. And the marker that I'm using, the Copic marker, is the YR68. And I'm going to color this part orange. My goal for this is just to make these flowers bright and fun, and very similar to the way a lot of you know I love the coloring books. I like to use really bright colors. Well, I'm going to do that for this card too. So I'm going to do that on that section. Then I'm going to use a red marker, and the red marker that I'm going to use is the R24. And I'm going to just put a little bit of that down here at the bottom of each one of those, just to give it some shading. And the cool thing about the Gina K Designs cardstock is because it's so tightly woven, it does take an extra minute or two for the Copic markers to completely dry. And that's fun because it allows the markers themselves to kind of blend. I'm just going to go back and add a little bit of orange onto the seam between the two colors. And that gives me a little bit of depth in there. My next color is going to be the, let's see here, this is the BG15. And it's always good to have a piece of paper that you can just test a color on to make sure that it's the color that you want. And this one, I'm going to color the bottom half of this layer here. It's kind of fun to use a couple of different markers and get some blending. It gives you some depth. And you might not do that when you're using the coloring books, but maybe you do. But this is kind of fun to take it a step further. And if you do love to color, you could stamp a whole bunch of these panels, and you could sit and put the TV on and grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and just relax and color away. And then you'll have all these fun panels to turn into cards. Okay, so next I'm going to go with BG23, and that one is going to go up here. This is just a little bit lighter. Then we're going to accent that with a darker blue. That's a good place for a seam where that little swirl is. A color seam. And since I'm going to be just making this a crazy flower, it's really not any particular type of flower. I'm going to add some green into the petals, but first I'm going to go with BG05, and I'm going to color that right over the swirl. See, that just darkens it up a bit. Like that. Then I'm going to go back with the original color that I put there, the BG15, and I'm going to pull some of that dark color down. To blend it a little bit, like that. I am going to add a little bit of that same color up in here. There we go. And then I'm going to grab the YG23, and this is a real bright green, very similar to our jelly bean green. So I'll put that right around the outside here. And I'm using a combination of chow markers and sketch markers for the Copics. You can also use the original markers, or like I said, Spectrum Noir markers, and just choose your own color palette. But these markers do come to a pretty fine point, so you can still get into some pretty tight areas even though they have a brush tip. But if you like that really small bullet tip, you can use the Copic original markers, or you can use the Spectrum Noir markers, because they have that too, and that's really nice. Alright, so then I'm going to color in these leaves, this same color. When I'm doing these bigger areas, I do like the brush tip. Okay, and then I have a darker green to add, and this one is G24. So I'm going to add that, just draw a thin line of it right around each of these petals, and again that creates some shading. And I'm also going to add that to the leaves. Let me put that aside for a second and grab that jelly bean color again, the YG23. Then I'm just going to color right over the line with that. Let's blend those together a little bit. Okay. Back to G24, And this I'm going to add to that little side panel there, and then I'm also going to add it right down the center of the leaf. And that kind of creates more of a glow toward the outside of that center line. I like the way that looks. So these flowers are fun to color. You can color them in all different pinks and purples and different combinations like that. Okay, so now I want the whole flower to kind of have a glow around it, and I'm going to go to the light one here, this Jade Green G00, and I'm going to just color a kind of an outline around the whole thing. This does dry a little bit lighter. But that does really kind of make the whole thing pop off of the white piece of cardstock. And just go around those petals. Gives it a glow. Now, if you don't want this glowy kind of color, you can also use a very soft gray. That gives the appearance of a shadow. But any of the real light colors will look really nice doing that. Gives it a watercolory look. Then for the inside, where the black part of that flower is, I'm going to take that gel pen, just start that a little bit, and I'm going to just draw a couple little dots like that. And I'll do that on those two when I finish coloring this entire panel. Now let me show you what that panel looks like when it's all colored. Here's a finished one. So you can see what it looks like with the dots. I think I did 4 on this one. I did 3 on these, but that's okay. You do whatever you like. And then there are the 3 flowers on this one. I'll put this one away and finish it later because that is so fun. Now I want to show you our new die. Let me put this aside for a second and grab a piece of white cardstock. Now this Picket fence die, I want this to appear wood-grained, but I don't want it to be brown. I want it to match more of the colors that are in this particular card that I just made. So I'm going to start with Moonlit Fog. And I'm going to, using this scrap piece of paper, I'm just going to rub down like that with the Moonlit Fog, like that. And then I'm going to use some Turquoise Sea on top of that, just to pull in a little bit of that turquoise color, a little bit of blue. That gives it a real rustic, beachy look. Okay. And then I want to show you how pretty these dies cut. So I have my Cuttlebug here. And let me back out a little bit. We're a little close there. I have my Cuttlebug. And I'm going to start with a C plate. And then I'm going to lay this piece of wood-grained paper down. Actually, where's my A plate? That's what I need to start with. Here it is. A plate, and then the C plate. Then I'm just going to lay that Picket fence die right on top and throw the B plate on top and cut. And I would recommend going back and forth maybe 1 time, 2 times, but it's a great die. It cuts, it's really sharp and it cuts great. Look at that. Just falls right out. Isn't that pretty? And the fence has a little bit of a wood-grained, kind of rustic look to it. So I'm going to put that aside. I do want to show you this butterfly die. I'm going to cut it out on this same piece of cardstock rather than waste it, but I will show you what I did on the inside of my other card with the butterfly die. So with the butterfly, I suggest that you lay the die down on its back and then put the piece of cardstock on top. It's a very intricate die, so it does need a little bit of extra help. So Actually, I think what I might do for this one is I might put the B plate down first, because my B plate's a little bit warped, and I want to make sure that the die has good contact with the paper. So the die is blade side up, and it's kind of off to one side. That seems to help with the pressure. And then my cardstock on top, and then the C plate, and then one extra piece of cardstock. And is that one? Or did I put two? I put two. Just one extra piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to go back and forth with this one several times because it is so intricate. It feels a little loose to me, but I am using our layering weight, so it's not a very thick cardstock. I'm going to go through with the second piece just to make sure. Let's see how that looks. Oh, yes. Okay. So if you have any trouble getting it out, that's where your craft pick comes in handy. You can just use that craft pick to lift a little bit of it out. But sometimes they'll just kind of start to come out on their own. So let's try that. Let's see if we can get it to fall out. There we go. So there is that intricate die cut. Isn't that beautiful? Such a nice die. And then you can use your craft pick with the holes on the back just to pop out those little extra pieces. But they do actually come out pretty easy just by tapping it like that. So these two dies are available now at GinaKDesigns.com, and they're a lot of fun. They're good basic dies. They can be used on so many cards. That's the kind of dies that I really like, is a die that I can use as an accent. And with all the flowers and stuff that we have at Gina K Designs, a picket fence and a butterfly, they go so nicely together. So now let me show you how I assemble this card. Let me grab that other piece here. First, I'm going to adhere this panel onto this black onyx panel. Make sure I have that lined up well. All right. And then this whole panel will go onto this piece of jelly bean green. But first, I want to add this little picket fence on top. So I'm going to cut this down. This panel, the white panel, is 3 3/4 inches wide. So I want to cut this down to about the same. So here I have my little paper cutter, and I'm just going to slip this in. I'm sorry, not 3 3/4 inch. That would be wrong. This is 5 inches across. It's 3 3/4 inches this way, so 5 inches across. So I'm going to pick a spot that looks like it will be fairly even for 5 inches, and I'm going to cut it there, and then I'm going to flip it around, take it to 5 inches, and cut it. And then that will fit perfectly across my card. Now there's a couple ways that you can adhere this. If you want it flat against the card, you can adhere the Stick It adhesive to the piece of paper before you cut it with your die, or you can get the foam rolls of tape, and you can cut a very thin strip of foam tape, and this way when you adhere it, it will stick out a little bit, and that will give it a little bit more dimension. Or the way I'm going to do it, I'm just going to run my dot adhesive right over the back here, and that's if I, when I don't have my Stick It adhesive handy. And a lot of you know that we've been moving, so it's been a little hectic trying to keep track of where everything is. So this is going to go, and try to hide your stems. So this is going to go, let me move that up a little bit to hide the stem, right about there. And I'll press that down. And then this whole panel is going to go on top of the jelly bean green card base. So if you wanted to, you could cut out a little greeting with an oval die and mount it right on the fence like it's hanging off the fence if you wanted a greeting on the front, or you could do what I did, and let me show you what I did to the inside. I cut 2 butterflies and I used some of the black Onyx cardstock, which I used as this layer here on the front of the card, and I used some of our Turquoise C, which coordinates with this part of the flower. And I taped the butterflies on, and then with my paper trimmer, I just trimmed off the excess before I mounted it onto this black panel. So that gives me a little bit of an interesting look for the inside of the card, using the You Color My World greeting. And this whole panel will go inside the card just like this. So there's the outside, which looks like a coloring book, and then the inside, You Color My World. So that is my finished card project. I hope you've enjoyed today's StampTV video. Stay tuned to StampTV for more videos featuring the brand new Sending Love StampTV kit. And thanks so much for watching.